Hi everybody, this is Bowen here, and we're going to take a look at guided notes for standard 18, polygon congruence. First, we have to talk about what is polygon congruence, or what does it mean for polygons to be congruent? Well, we know this word congruent, and we're used to seeing the congruent symbol, which is an equal sign with a little squiggly on top. And if polygons are congruent, we could say that they are polygons that are equal in size and shape. Polygons that are equal in size and shape. So for things to be congruent, they have to be equal in size and shape. Next, let's talk about naming polygons. And we are asked, what are all the possible names for the given polygon? So in example A, we have a polygon. We can count, there are 6 sides in my polygon. And for titling this polygon, I'm going to have to use all of the letters that we see on the vertices going around the polygon. And there are actually 2 different methods we can use to title this polygon. One method is you could start at one of the points, and we could start off by titling this side, and we could continue going around the polygon clockwise. Or we could start and we could title this side and go about the polygon counterclockwise. So the 2 methods, we could title it clockwise or counterclockwise. Both are acceptable, but we do need to use all of the vertices, all of the letters to be able to title our polygon. So I'm going to start out by titling the polygon clockwise, and I'll start here at point A. So if I'm starting at point A and I need to go clockwise about my polygon, we could name this polygon A, B, C, D, E, F. Polygon A, B, C, D, E, F. Now I could start titling it at point B. If I start at point B and go clockwise, it would be polygon B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C, D, E, F, A. And then I could start at point C, then it would be polygon C, D, E, F, A, B. Then I could start at point D, and I'd have polygon D, E, F, A, B, C. Start at point E, and I would have polygon E, F, A, B, C, D. And then the last way I could title this polygon going clockwise would be to start at point F, and I would have polygon F, A, B, C, D, E. So I was able to come up with 6 names for my polygon, titling it going clockwise. And that makes sense because we have 6 sides in this polygon. I have to come up with all of the possible names though. So now I need to follow the same procedure, but now I need to go counterclockwise. So I'll start at point A again, but now I need to go in the other direction counterclockwise. So I could call it polygon A, F, E, D, C, B, A, or excuse me, C, B. So polygon A, F, D, A, F, E, D, C, B. And as you can see here, you really need to look at the figure. And then I could start at point F. And I could title this polygon F, E, D, C, B, A. Then I could start at point E going counterclockwise, and I would have polygon E, D, C, B, A, F. And then I could start at point D, and I would have polygon D, C, B, A, F, E. And then I could start at point C, and I would have polygon C, B, A, F, E, D. And then lastly, I could start here at point B, and I would have polygon B, A, F, E, D, C. So We had 6 names going clockwise, 6 names going counterclockwise. We could make a note down here that there are 6 sides in this polygon times 2 methods, right? Because we could go clockwise or counterclockwise. And 6 times 2 gives us 12 ways to title this polygon. So at this time, I would like for you to take a look at You Try One, pause the video, and see what you come up with. Let's see how you did. On this You Try, I was able to come up with 3 names for my triangle going clockwise, 3 names going counterclockwise. So we could say that because there are 3 sides in a triangle, times are 2 different methods, there were 6 ways to name our triangle. One thing that you will see is that I did add in a little triangle symbol. So most likely you did not add in that triangle symbol, so please add that in now. These are polygons, and specifically they're triangles. When we do have a triangle, we can use the triangle symbol out front. And in the next section, we're going to look at corresponding sides and angles. So this word corresponding, this is different than the word congruent. And the word corresponding, it's referring to sides and angles that match up. Sides and angles that match up. Meaning in our polygons, we will see some tick marks like we do down here in these figures, and then that tells us which sides match with which other sides and which angles match with which other angles. Next, we have what's called the polygon congruence postulate. And this postulate tells us that if all the corresponding sides and angles, all the corresponding sides and angles are congruent, then the polygons are congruent. So first you have to be able to prove that the corresponding sides and angles are congruent, or that the sides and angles match up, and then you can prove that the polygons are congruent. So example B, we are asked to write a congruent statement about the given polygons, and we have 2 polygons here. And before we are going to be able to write our congruent statement, we have to first be able to prove that the sides and angles do indeed match up. So I'm going to, let's start with sides. I'm going to first list all of the sides that are corresponding or that match up. So when looking at sides, we use tick marks to tell which sides are congruent to which other sides. So I can see that when looking at sides, I have 2 sides that have 1 tick mark each, side AB and side EF. So I can say AB, side AB is congruent to side EF. Recall that when we title sides, we use 2 letters, and we do have to use a congruent, or excuse me, we put a congruent symbol in between, and we do have to put the segment bar up top. Next, I can go to the sides with 2 tick marks each, so that would be side BC and side FG. So I can say that side BC here is congruent to side FG. Then I can go to 3 tick marks each for the sides, so side CD is congruent to side GH. And then lastly, I can go to the sides that have 4 tick marks each, so side DA is congruent to side HE. I do want to point out that the order that you list the 2 letters does not matter. So this would not matter if we called this side DA or side AD. It's the same side, right? Sides, you use 2 letters, and the order that you list the 2 letters does not matter. So here we have proved that our sides are matching up. We need to now do the same thing with our angles. So I will follow along the same procedure, but now with angles. So now I'm looking at the angle tick marks, and I can start with my angles that have 1 tick mark each. So I see right here, angles A and E have 1 tick mark each. So I can say angle A is congruent to angle E. Notice I'm using an angle symbol and I am putting the congruent symbol in between. Now I can go to the angles with 2 tick marks each and I can say angle B is congruent to angle F. I can go to angles with 3 tick marks each, so angle C is congruent to angle G. And lastly, angle D is congruent to angle H. So here we have proof that all of our angles are matching up based on tick marks. So now that we have showed that all of our sides and angles are matching up, we can go ahead and write a congruence statement. So we're going to title this polygon similar to how we did up here, how there are different ways you could title the polygon. We just need to pick one way and we have to be consistent. So for example, if I start titling this polygon right here at point B and I go around the polygon like this and I call it polygon BCDA, then when I list how it is congruent to the other polygon, I need to be consistent. Meaning, if I started with the angle here B that had 2 tick marks, then I need to match it up to F. So B here needs to match with the angle F. And then I can move on. My next angle, if we go, if we're titling the polygon in this direction, I can match the angles with 3 tick marks each. So I would need to match that angle C with angle G in this polygon. Again, you have to match them up. And then I can go to the next angle here. Angle D and H go together. So I need to match those up. D matches with H. And then lastly, you can see we have 1 angle left here. And I can see these are my angles with 1 tick mark each. So A here needs to match with E. When you look at this, not only are my angles matching up, but my sides are matching up. What I mean by that is side BC needs to match with side FG. BC has 2 tick marks, FG has 2 tick marks. Right here, side CD needs to match with side GH. CD has 3 tick marks and GH has 3 tick marks. So when you write your congruence statement, the angles and the sides have to match up if we're going to say that these two are congruent. So at this time, I would like for you to go ahead, pause the video, and you to follow the same steps to see what you come up with for you try 2. Here's what I came up with for you try 2. I had 3 congruent sides and 3 congruent angles. The order that you listed these does not matter. I do want to point out that this angle right here, when we talk about angle C, if you did not use 3 letters, you need to revise that. You must use 3 letters. You cannot just say angle C is congruent to angle C. And we talked about this previously when titling angles. Because if you just say angle C is congruent to angle C, I don't know which angle C you're talking about. We've got this small angle C, we've got this inside angle C, this small angle C, the whole big angle C. So you're going to have to use 3 letters. And if we're trying to title this angle here, this angle C in the top triangle, you could either title it angle ACB or you could title it angle BCA, but angle C here, C is our vertex, so the letter C has to go in the middle. So this could have been ACB or BCA, and then this one could have been DCB or BCD, but C has to go in the middle because that is your vertex. And then for my congruent statement, I got that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEC. If we now flip to the back side, we're going to do something very similar. And now instead of being given a figure, we are given the congruent statement. And based off of this congruent statement, we need to list all the congruent sides and angles. So I'm going to make a column for sides and I will make a column for angles, and I need to list all of them. So I need to keep in mind here that the order is what matters. So let's start by listing sides. And so my first side here, again, sides have 2 letters, so we could call it side QU. Side QU would be congruent to side RH. And you can see that here they were the first and second letter in their polygon. Next, I can go to side UA, and I can match that with side HM. Then I can go to side AD, and I can match that with side MB. And then these are polygons with 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, but I only have 3 listed. So you can't forget about the last side. The last side would be combining your first and your last letter. So we could say that it's side DQ. You could say DQ, or you could say QD, but you're combining the first and the last letter. So DQ would be congruent to BR. Again, we are putting the segment bar on top because these are sides. Now for angles, we're going to have to use an angle symbol. And with these angles, I can use one letter. I could call it angle Q. I could say angle Q is congruent to angle R. And then I could look at the second letter. So I could say angle U is congruent to angle H. And then I could say angle A is congruent to angle M. And then lastly, I could say angle D is congruent to angle B. So in U try 3, you'll be doing the same thing, listing the sides and the angles. And you're also going to do this section here. This is also a U try. And in our example here, we had 2 polygons that were congruent. And now here we have 1, 2, 3 polygons that are congruent. So same idea here. Side BC matches with side LM, matches with side TV. And then if you want to look at the angles, angle G would match with angle R, which would match with angle Z. So same idea, but now there are 3 of them that are corresponding. So at this time, you can go ahead, pause the video. You'll do this U try section as well as U try 3. Here you can check your answer for U try 3. You came up with 3 congruent sides and 3 congruent angles. Again, the order that you listed, each of these congruent statements does not matter. And then I'll give you a moment to check this U try section. And then for our very last part of our notes today, we are asked to prove that each of the given figures are congruent. And I see this word prove, and we have worked on proofs before. So in example D, if we are proving something, we here are going to set up a formal 2-column proof. So you may remember that one of the columns is for statements, and the other column is for the reasons. So we need to create our proof format, statements and reasons. And before we could write a final congruent statement, we talked about how we have to show that the sides and angles do indeed match up. So I'll go ahead and I'll start with angles here. And right away, I see that I have tick marks on my angles. I have 2 angles here with 1 tick mark each, angle R and angle F. So I could say that angle R is congruent to angle F. And the reason for that is going to be given because my figure gives me that information. So I just did these 2 angles with 1 tick mark each. Right here, angle R is congruent to angle F. Now we could do our angles with 2 tick marks each, and we see that they're both angle E, but we cannot say angle E is congruent to angle E. We're going to have to use 3 letters. So I could say angle REX. Angle REX is congruent to angle FEX. And again, the reason that I have to use 3 letters is because there's 2 angle E's. Keep in mind, E is my vertex, so E is staying in the middle there. And my reason for this is given from the figure. I have one last angle right here. Angle X is congruent to angle X, except for I will need to use 3 letters again. So I could call this one angle RXE, angle RXE, and it is congruent to angle FXE. Notice my X has to be in the middle because my X is the vertex. And here are my 2 angles with the 3 tick marks. My reason is given. So I have listed and I have showed that my 3 angles do indeed match up. So my angles are corresponding. But now I need to do the same thing with the sides. So I see I have a side here, 1 tick mark and 1 tick mark. So I could say side RE. It's a side, we're using 2 letters with the segment bar up top. Side RE matches with side FE. That is given from our figure. I can highlight these for you. Side RE matches with side FE. I see I have 2 sides with 2 tick marks each right here. Side RX matches with side FX, given from my figure. And so now I've only listed 2 sides and we have 2 triangles here. So I do have a 3rd side. And it is this side here in the middle of the figure, this side EX. Please put 3 tick marks on that side. Side EX is going to be congruent to itself. So we can write EX congruent to side EX. And the reason for this is because this is a shared side. It is being used by both triangles. You can think of it as this side is like being flipped. It's being used in both figures here. And the reason is something called the reflexive property. Hopefully you remember that from when we worked with proofs. Reflexive property allows us to say that this side EX is congruent to itself. So now we have shown that we have 3 congruent angles and we also have 3 congruent sides. We've showed our angles match up, our sides match up. So now we can do our final step and we are proving that our figures are congruent. Real quick, if you flip your notes over right here, this polygon congruence postulate, we said that if all of the corresponding sides and angles are congruent, well then the polygons are congruent. And we just proved that all the corresponding sides and angles are congruent. So now we could go ahead and title our polygons. These are triangles, so I'll use the triangle symbol and I'll say triangle REX. Triangle REX is congruent to triangle, and now I have to be very careful of the order. So if I said REX, I would need to match it up. This angle R was my orange angle with 1 tick mark, so I would need to start over here with this angle F. If we're looking at angles, I went from the angle with 1 tick mark to 2 tick marks to 3. So I would need to do the same here and go from 1 tick mark to 2 tick marks to 3. So I could say triangle REX is congruent to triangle FEX. And the reason, we just flipped to the other side of our notes, that is called the polygon congruence postulate. And again, we can use that because we have already showed that all of our corresponding angles and sides are congruent. Therefore, our polygons, in this case, our triangles, are congruent. Right now, you have your very last you try 4. Go ahead and pause the video. Let's see how you did. So in this you try, you had to be very careful when listing these two angles right here. We were talking about angles C and B. You had to use 3 letters. Also be careful when you look at your figure to notice my 2 pink angles were congruent and here my 2 blue angles were congruent. So just double check that you listed these correctly. And then in this proof, we also had reflexive property. So you should have added 3 tick marks to this shared side BC, and that's by reflexive property we can say side BC is congruent to itself. And then lastly, because of the polygon congruence postulate, we are able to say that the 2 triangles are congruent because we've already showed that corresponding angles and corresponding sides are congruent. Thank you for watching.